Yeah. So there we go. That's it, Pete. I think any question, I'm going to go back to this slide because sometimes that is quite nice to prompt any questions because you can kind of see the two frameworks in there.
Yeah, firstly, so many golden nuggets. I love that rubbing your dreams up against reality piece. And Ben, you had a question about, so I'm just going to bring you in first as well. And just whilst you're preparing for your question, Ben, that slide at the bottom, Craig, that's just got months of coaching tucked into it, hasn't it? Years of coaching.
You know, Pete, I think that's the thing. As I know, what we don't want to do is be prescriptive. I mean, that's the whole point of coaching versus going to a psychologist. And for me, though, I have a lot more confidence in my ability to help my coachees, help my clients. If I have this kind of in my own, I have a plan, I suppose, a framework. But actually within the framework, there's a lot of flexibility in there. So for us to not have to be prescriptive in what we do, and you know, just building strategies for our clients that they can then pick and choose, they can build. So we almost saying, well, here's the menu, but you go as a client, you choose what we want to work on, you build your agency within that. So I think that's what's really powerful about it. It's kind of almost it's not a really free coaching where it's just about asking questions. There is a kind of, you know, there are boxes to it, but within those boxes, there's a lot of flexibility. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a couple I got Fraser with his hand up. Ben was going to ask a question around exploring the unique differences between how people find resilience, and Fiona, I'll just ask Fiona's question first because it was the quick one. Is there a link for the Whoop exercise?
Yes, I will. Let me. So, you know what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give you the. I will send it. I'll actually send it, Pete, if you're able to pass it on to folk. I think that's probably better because otherwise I'll search for it now. But what it does is there's a whole lot of files there that give a really nice, give the exercises, gives a short definition of the rundown of Whoop, the background to it, how you use it, and then it gives various solutions around how you can implement the plan part of it, which I think is really powerful. So,
Ben, we'll go to you first, and then we'll throw over to Fraser.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thank you for that. I really enjoyed that, Craig. Quick question. So you spoke about building resilience as something that's really key in the clients that we're working with, and I love that. But how do you? I find building resilience so unique. I have to really hold on to my advice monster because my go-to is like, just go and run a marathon, like go and do something extreme, and that will build resilience, right? And it sounds like you do some of that type of stuff as well. So how do you, I guess, keep your advice monster in? What type of language do you use to explore sort of mental resilience and building that, mate?
Wow. So, I mean, that's a really good question because it's a really difficult piece. And I think at the moment as well. So what I like, so a lot of the work that I'm doing in this space is with teachers who are working with young people. So I'm going to use that as, if you don't mind, and you can draw the parallels for the field that you work in. So I do a lot of looking back. So give me an example of where you were faced with some adversity and unpack that for me, you know, where you've been, because you're here now. So clearly you've been able to move through that space. Can you look back? And I think what it is again, it's about creating an awareness within people that, you know, we only truly know if we're brave when we look back. So it's always after an event. You know, we only know, you know, hope only comes, you know, people say, well, hope comes when we're hoping about something in there. Well, no, hope actually comes from experiencing stuff and believing we can go push through. So when it comes to resilience and grit and all of these kinds of things, I like looking back and saying to people, look at where the things you've done in your past, where you've done well. And no matter who a person is, they will always find, even if it's small little things. And to then say, okay, so actually you have the ability to be resilient. You have the ability to, I think trying to, so you get them to unpack it themselves first. And, what's the definition of grit? It's passion plus persistence, isn't it? So, it's about keep moving, keep going. That's all resilience is. That's all grit is about that ability to just keep moving. And, it's just, I know it sounds too simplistic, doesn't it? But actually, that's what it is. So what you try and do is get them to look back, see moments where they have just pushed through, kept going, and say, well, that's it. It's as simple as that. There's no magic formula. People think it's way more complicated than it is. I mean, resilience is scary because people don't think they have it, but actually we all do, because all it is about just keeping moving forward.
Yes. Fraser, your hand's been up for a while. You're small, robotic. Hand over to you, mate.
It's aching. Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Craig. Great presentation. Super interesting topic. I'm just going back to the PERMA model and looking at each individual element.
Yeah.
You're clearly steeped in the understanding and knowledge through your backgrounds. But for someone like me who doesn't have that background, if I was going to broach a topic such as positive emotions, what would you say the base knowledge needs to be to have that conversation?
Yeah, that really good question. So for me, the base knowledge would be that because as human beings, we have a negativity bias is massively powerful. So as human beings, we gravitate towards negative emotion. Genetically, we predisposed to that. That's how we survived. That's what I always say when I'm presenting to a group of teachers, doing a positive psychology session, I'll say to them, you are all so good at being negative. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Genetically, the reason you are alive is because you didn't go up and pat that dinosaur on the nose. You ran. So what's happened is you've survived because your forefathers have been very, very good at identifying, having a negativity bias. So the critical thing in this is that we understand as human beings that we have a predisposition towards negative emotions, and that the research that is there is that we need to be engaged in at least 3 times as many positive emotional events versus negative emotions. So 3-to-1 ratio is critical. And so we need to cultivate positive emotions. We need to seek out opportunities to ensure that we are engaged in positive emotional events 3 times more than negative emotional events. That would be, like, for me, the cornerstone of this building the positive emotion pathway. Things like gratitude journaling I think is a massively powerful exercise. Again, Martin Seligman's research, just before you go to bed, 3 things that went well today. What are 3 things I'm grateful for? Sitting down at the dining room table with your children and saying, what are you grateful for today? What it does, and we know physiologically when we are thinking about positive emotions, we go into our thinking brain, to our prefrontal cortex. When we are in that negativity bias, negative emotions, we start sliding back into our reptilian brain. So just those 2 things, understanding thinking brain, positive emotions, reptilian brain, negative emotions. Where are we going to find solutions? Where are we going to be able to create social bonds? It's out here in our prefrontal cortex with positive emotions. So build them. Or it's another really beautiful, go for a walk, look at the beauty around you. That's a powerful emotion. Love. I mean, the most powerful positive emotion is love. And it's not necessarily the love you feel for. Sorry, Siri wanted to speak to me. Children, or your partner, it can be love in a much greater sense than that. So cultivating those positive emotions. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Thank you very much. I just had one other question, slightly different, but do you use a particular framework around visualization with your clients?
So I also kind of did a lot of NLP training when I was sort of in the early days. So I do use, my visualization is very much around ensuring that using all the senses, visual, auditory, kinesthetic, trying to really get a person to immerse themselves in the experience when they're visualizing. So it's not just a visual, it's not just something that's visual, it's actually something that they're living, but not a specific framework as such, but rather just taking the NLP kind of idea of what visualization is and just building from there.
Okay, thank you very much.
So we're just coming up to the hour in a moment. So there's a little bit of a crescendo happening for this session. And David, I'll just get you to start warming up your prefrontal cortex for your piece in a second. I just want to share one of my favorite nuggets. That Whoop piece I just absolutely loved. And the other piece that I really loved was That's Like Me. That's Like Me. That idea of internalizing good things that happen as much as possible. Love that. Thank you.
Yeah, can I just add to that? I mean, really, those of you who are, to me, I think a lot of the work we do is to try and get our coachees, our clients to build positive habits, to build habits of flourishing, for them to be successful. And it can be in different areas of those pathways, but everything we do, really, if we can create positive habits within our clients, then they tend to have a better chance of flourishing. So if you're into that, BJ Fogg's Tiny Habits as a book, I think is massively powerful. It's a great resource to look at because there's some great strategies in there to build that. And That's Like Me is actually one of a strategy out of his work.
Yeah, I love that. The table at the bottom, the words on it are really small. I'd love a high def image of that I can share with everybody later on. And Craig, thank you so much for that. That was so great. And there were so many little nuggets that we can take into our sessions. The other one was a pracademic, which I'll be stealing off you as well. John Viney, who loves a good bit of language and prose, has already written it down. Did you know about that? Have you used that word before, pracademic?
I haven't, but it is written down. I'm scared of how well you know me. It's very disconcerting. I feel judged, and rightly so.
Pete, just from my side, thanks so much. I just love sharing this stuff, and I'm really passionate about it. So I hope it's been a useful little bit of time for all of you, and I hope you find something. And please reach out to me if you want to have a more in-depth conversation about any of the aspects. I'd love to connect with you.
Yeah, thank you, mate. Love it.